Hi guys, I just finished reading pages 117 to 127 in the first video for this week's reading for week 6. So if you haven't watched that video, please watch that one first. The last poem we read was a poem about Keck telling his cousin Ganwar about how he had just gotten a job. We're now moving into part 3 of the book, and there's a proverb that starts part 3 that says, "One doesn't forego sleeping because of the possibility of nightmares." The first poem that we're going to read in this section of text is called Cowboy on page 131, and we'll be reading through pages 149. Cowboy. In ESL class, we learn a new game called Interview. Miss Hernandez says it makes us more confident when we use our English words. Plus, it's a good way to learn about our classmates. First, we have to hold a cardboard tube and pretend that it's something called a microphone to make our voices loud. So you guys know that probably. A microphone looks something like this. So the kids are using like a tube. Maybe I'm thinking the inside of a paper towel roll to pretend it's a microphone. First, we have to hold a cardboard tube and pretend that it's something called a microphone to make our voices loud. I saw one once on the TV machine with a lady singing into it. She howled like a stick animal till my ears wanted to run away. I'm the first to go. I have to stand up and say 5 sentences. I say, I have a new job. I help Lou with her farm. She has a cow, 3 goats, many chickens, and a pig. I will go there after school sometimes and on the days named Saturday and Sunday. Lou says I can name the cow. I take a deep breath. I'm very weary from the long speech. Next comes the interview part. That is where each student asks you a question. If they run out of questions, then the teachers can help. Nishan is first. Why does the cow not have a name? I take another deep breath. I like the questions best with a yes or no for an answer, but this time I'm not so lucky. Lou says her husband called the cow the cow. She didn't think that was such a right name. Very good answer, Keck, says Mr. Franklin. Aisha is next. You could call the cow Mr. Franklin. The class thinks this is a good joke, and there is much laughing. She's a girl, so she needs a girl name, I explain. Now each person has an idea for a name. This isn't exactly how to play interview, but the teachers don't seem to mind. Miss Hernandez writes the name on the board. Some are very silly. Mr. Franklin, Milkshake, Miss Hernandez, Keck Jr., Kitty Kitty, Salama, Rover, Chiku, Angelita, Zlata, Big Mac. When they're done, Mr. Franklin asks me if I have a name in mind. I think for a moment. We have a word in my language, I say. Goal. And what does it mean? Mr. Franklin asks. I feel my face heat. It means family, I say. Miss Hernandez says it's up to me, but I say I would like to have a vote. Because Miss Hernandez taught us that that's how things are decided in America. We vote, goal wins. Hamburger gets 2 votes. Nice job, cowboy, Mr. Franklin says when I sit down at last. The rest of the day, everyone calls me cowboy. It's a good day. The cow has a new name, and I have one too. Working on page 136. The snow and muck yank at my boots. The wind slaps my cheeks. In my heavy coat, I plod like an old donkey on market day. So why am I so glad in my heart? The work at Lou's is simple. Feed the animals, clean the stalls, shovel the front porch. But when I am working, my mind doesn't travel where it should go. I'm only here with the chickens underfoot and Goal nudging for an ear scratch. Sometimes I talk to her softly. I tell her of my father's great herd and how they would graze each day, walking for miles. The sun in our bones, the grass whispering its shy music. I sing her one of my father's songs and listen for an echo of his voice in mine. She nuzzles me and flicks her ears and chews her cud. When I bury my face in Goal's old hide, I smell hay and dung and life. She shelters me like a warm wall, and that is enough for this day. Okay, the next poem is on page 138. It's called Ganwar Meet Goal. On Saturday, Dave comes to pick up Ganwar. They're going to fill out paperwork asking for a job at the places that sell fries. Dave says he can drop me off at Lou's on the way. Ganwar doesn't talk on the way to the farm. His face looks frozen, but his eyes are hot. He keeps rubbing the place where his hand once was. When we get to Lou's, I say, would it be all right if I showed Ganwar the farm? He hasn't seen a cow in a long time. I wait for Ganwar to spit out the word no, but he gives a slow nod. Dave looks at his arm clock. 10 minutes, he says, tops. We go to Lou's door, and when she opens it, I say, this is my cousin Ganwar. He'd like to see the farm. Be my guest, Lou says. There's a new bag of chicken feed in the shed, Keck. Ganwar follows me through the thick, crunching snow. It isn't much of a farm, he says. Hardly any animals, and the big road so near. Still, it isn't so bad if you don't think about it, I say. I shake my head. I'm getting very good at not thinking about things. We enter the gray, sagging barn that looks like this, like an older barn. We enter the gray, sagging barn. Sun and angry wind sneak through the broken spots. There she is, I say, pointing. Ganwar groans. Are you sure that's a cow? Our fathers wouldn't think so, I admit. I stroke her flank while Ganwar watches. She has old eyes, tired but patient. Gol is her name, I add. Ganwar takes his glove off his good hand with his teeth. He strokes her too. I meet Ganwar's eyes. Don't worry about the job too much, I say. What another man takes 2 hands to do, you can do with one. Ganwar puts his head against Gol's neck. You're lucky to have found this job, but you make the luck happen. I wish I could be herding, I say. I don't know anything about farms, really. We stand there, watching the cow's breath come in soft puffs. Suddenly, another big idea jumps into my head. I think that if I knew where such ideas come from, I would be a wealthy man with 1,000 cattle and a flying boat. Stay here, I say. Keep her company for me. An idea, page 142. A few minutes later, I race back to the barn, stumbling in the stubborn snow. Dave and Lou follow. Lou has on a thick red coat and a hat with a fuzzy ball on top. Ganwar is still leaning against Gol. Your cousin has an idea, Dave says. My grin is so big it hurts. You can work with me here, I exclaim, helping with the farm. All is quiet. Ganwar looks doubtful. He doesn't say yes, but he doesn't say no either. I don't have much cash, Lou says. You'd have to split the pay I'd promised Keck. But come spring, I sell organic veggies and flowers at the farmer's market, and you could help with that. She pauses. Assuming that is, I hang on to this old place. Ganwar looks at me hard. I can't take your charity. This is your vocab word, guys, so you're going to have a question about this word here. I can't take your charity, which is a type of help that is given to people in need. But I'm taking yours, I say. You're sharing your home with me. I don't know anything about farming, Ganwar says. I don't either, I say. Ganwar turns to Lou and holds out his hurt arm. What about this? He asks. His voice is soft, but his words are shouting. We all look at Lou. Lou shrugs. Guess you'll have to use the other one, she says. For some reason, this makes Ganwar smile. He slowly nods. He glances at Dave. Can you come back later? He asks. We have dung to shovel. I laugh. It's much harder here, I warn him. Everything freezes, even that. Gall moves softly, as if she's sorry to make work for us. Dave shakes my hand, then Lou's, then Ganwar's. Folks, this is great, he says. Ganwar, don't let Lou down, buddy. He won't, Lou says. She winks. Dave and Lou leave us in the barn. I look around me. It's not it's not a great herd I see, dotting the grass like clouds in a vast green sky. It's just a tired flock of scrawny chickens and a cow with ribs trying to hide behind her muddy coat. But for a moment, as Ganwar and I hum one of the old songs, we are where we belong in the world. Last poem for this section for week 6 is called Field Trip, starting on page 146. Field Trip. The next week, my ESL class takes a field trip to the zoo. Field trip is another English trick, like raining cats and dogs and a barrel of laughs, because there is no field, and it's not a far trip. like the one I took from Africa. We take a yellow bus. When we get to the zoo, we must stand in line to get our tickets. The other kids complain, but I am used to lines. One day in the refugee camp, I stood in line for 9 hours to get a handful of corn. At last, a guiding lady walks us past birds and lizards, fish and butterflies, zebras and elephants. We're looking for animals from our homelands. I see gazelles. The picture of gazelles in the required reading packet. Okay, here's what gazelles look like. I see gazelles standing on a low hill beyond a fence. I remember such animals bounding through tall grass, riding the air like wingless birds. I wonder, how did they come to be here in this strange, cold world? They flick their tails and check the horizon for danger. They're safe here, but they don't know it. We visit the petting zoo with its animals for touching, who will not eat your hand. There are goats and chickens and pigs, a llama and a turkey, but no cows. We are supposed to be watching the animals, but I can't stop looking at the people looking at all the animals. A class of little children laughs at the pigs rolling happily in the cold mud. Their class looks at our class, or maybe their class looks like our class, or maybe we look like them. Many colors and shapes and words. Of all the things I didn't know about America, this is the most amazing. I didn't know there would be so many tribes from all over the world. How could I have imagined the way they walk through the world side by side, without fear, all free to gaze at the same sky with the same hopes? What would my father have said to see such a thing? My brother? What will my mother say? I walk behind my classmates to the next exhibit, but I am not alone. My family is with me, and every sight is something they cannot see, and every hope is something they cannot feel. To carry them, unseen as the wind, is a heavy burden. All right, so that ends our reading for this week on page 149 for week 6. Hope you guys enjoyed it.